That first thing.
And you are live.
Okay, everybody, House Education, Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Continuing our H454 discussion, getting ready to return to class size minimums and language needed around that. I'm going to turn it over to Representative Brady, who's been speaking with those in the field about some language that may or may not work.
Okay, so hopefully we will have, Beth back with us in like 10 minutes or so, based on conversations we had live this morning, and asking her to go ahead and talk with, Chelsea and the VSA to help us sort out some of the things we're struggling with in the specifics in the class size language. They may be coming back with some suggestions. I think just procedurally here, especially for folks who are new, we're in sort of, well, many of your teachers, so it's basically like the end of the semester. It's sort of, all hands on deck,
Yep.
crunch time / students are like, what can I still do for 5 points?
Get on my face.
And so there's a lot of side conversations that are happening, not to leave anybody out of anything, but like 8 things have to happen at once for any chance of this. So as these things come up, I'm emailing Chelsea and saying, okay, can you talk to Beth about that? As you're seeing things and have people you want involved in the conversation, you can connect them directly to Beth. We do not have a monopoly on her time. She's being pulled into other committees too. So some of that stuff is happening, not all live on camera, but it's not meant in any way to, it's just trying to keep this process moving and the timeline that we're on. And so to that end, I also met with Beth instead of lunch, and we've got lots of discrete pieces she's been giving us to keep it sort of manageable and focused on the thing at hand. But we're moving towards a bill or a strike all to a bill that then we will ultimately have to vote on then, whatever dark o'clock on Friday. And so we met to talk about how does it all fit together so that we can have, even if we haven't gone through all the parts of it yet, we have to go through every part of it, but get the whole package on the table for all of us to see, and for a lot more people are watching than are sitting in this room to be able to see and have the actual language, hopefully by tomorrow morning. So Beth and I talked about how to structure all these kind of disparate pieces into a bill, or the strike all of the bill. And I admittedly use the frame I've been using in here, and so you are welcome to offer alternatives. But of saying there's sort of major buckets of work of what we're doing in committee, and to the best that we can organize the bill that way, so that whoever is doing all this on the floor has sort of a story to tell about the bill, and we all have a story to tell to the greater public of what we're doing here. And it's a hard story to tell, I think, as we're all figuring out. So the buckets that she's trying to organize things into in our bill are the same kind of areas, domains we've been in. Scale is where we spent a lot of time and where we are trying to get to as close as we're going to get to some wrap up, maybe by the end of today. That's class size, school size, district size, all the size stuff that impacts quality and impacts efficiency. Then there's the statewide cohesion bucket. We got some testimony from AOE back on some of that stuff last year. We've heard bits and pieces about it. We need to actually see the language. Beth has drafted language based on a lot of the testimony we've gotten. When she's sitting in here, she's often taking the ideas and putting them into legislative language. So we're ready to look at real drafts. And then the last piece that we've talked about a little bit more in the budget context, but not so much here, is the statewide governance piece, the AOE capacity, the state board capacity, their roles. We've got things to consider and talk. So she's going to put it into one package that sort of flows in that general order, for everyone to have access to as of tomorrow. The other big assignment we have is that it's up to us as the policymakers to set the intent of why we're doing this in the intent section of a bill. And so we have an opportunity, but it's a short one here, to write what is our intent? Why are we doing this? To sort of, again, tell the story that will be then codified, and also help us with, what we are telling Vermont about why we're doing it. And so she's listened to a ton of our conversations. I've taken notes when we've had committee conversations and literally made wordles to see like what words came up the most and the biggest. But we are hoping, And if we have to wait a few minutes for her, we could maybe do this now for 15 minutes or so. To sort of collectively think about what are the biggest sort of phrases or themes we want to ensure are captured in the legislative intent of why this is all happening. And we might ask our resident writer, Representative Hunter, to help us with some of the construction of this into an intent section. I mean, I've been doing little writing bits and pieces. Beth is trying to pull
I'm sure
themes,
it's
but
fine.
again, this is a group project. Group projects are fun and challenging. So if we're waiting for Beth, we could have a little bit of a conversation about intent and major themes. It's not gonna be perfect, so that those who are then trying to put those into words can bring back some actual language to look at tomorrow.
But let's do that.
Great.
You're doing an excellent
will-
job facilitating.
I will take notes. If one other person wanted to take notes, especially since Beth's not here yet to listen to it, and she'll probably try to go back to listen, but we are now asking a lot of her in real time.
I can do that.
So whether it's like just a little sort of statement, or if it's, I would go back to a certain document, I'd want to pull some things from here. Like for me, I want to go back to what because we did this with creating on the commission on future public education. So now I'm like, oh, what did we say our intent was then? Because sort of it's still the same intent that was only a year ago, and we were in largely the same situation. So there might be some language we would reuse and repeat. But other thoughts?
Sure, I'm happy to sort of start things on. I think on a broad scale, the intent is to create a school system in Vermont, public educational school system in Vermont that is stable, that is at a scale that connects affordability and opportunity, greater affordability, greater opportunity. And I might just hold there and let somebody else jump in.
I don't have any I mean, what I would say is you hit on two of my words that I wrote down here, opportunity and stabilization. I also would like to include, parts about the transparency and the predictability.
High quality education, equitable access. Those are two terms you hear me use all the time.
Streamline, organization, maximize resources.
And I'll just say, as we're developing this, if I can, while we're developing this, my goal is always to put kids first,
Yes, yeah.
kids first. So opportunity
Student
and
focused.
then money after that. So it's, you know what I'm saying, in the order of how we line it up, even visually, verbally, thoughtfully.
We did say some good stuff in the yield bill from last year.
Oh, is it different than is it this, the yield bill out? Oh, this is the yield bill.
Yes.
Page 887.
Okay.
I could read a couple lines.
Yeah.
The right to education is fundamental for the success of Vermont's children in a rapidly changing society and global marketplace, as well as for the state's own economic and social prosperity. A little bit about what the commission should do. Ensure that all students are afforded substantially equal educational opportunities in an efficient, sustainable, and stable education system.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a couple of phrases there we wanna,
Yeah, I think that was.
it's just last year, and I would say we aren't there yet.
Do we want to be, are you thinking we could be as specific as saying, and it is our intent to create new districts that achieve, along the stuff we just said, that achieve greater efficiency and opportunity for students, or more equitable opportunity for students. Actually, it's going to be more, but it'll be more equitable.
Are we just popcorning right now?
A little bit
Yeah,
popcorning,
sounds
but yeah. So,
Informative language.
what Aaron says and what when we have to get up and present this bill.
Yeah,
We'd like to tell the story
right.
as to why we're doing what we're doing.
I think it's really important, especially to some of the rural areas that are gonna feel harder hit, to also mention sustainability. But at the same time, that it may look like we're making choices that are shuttering some opportunities. It's actually to regionally keep us alive for longer.
Right.
And we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but I just want to gather before a couple of us try to maybe put this into words on the page for tomorrow morning. None of this is a surprise. The things that we've been talking about, stability, scale, affordability, transparency,
Focused.
predictability, high quality, equitable access to opportunity, maximizing resources, sustainability. None of those necessarily stand out as a big surprise, but
Maybe something about outcomes.
Thank you, yes.
could you be more specific?
Accountability.
I'm gonna go with no right now, because I disagree with many who think we're not getting good outcomes right now, so. But I do think for all our students, it's what we want. We want them to find success.
To maximize the outcome.
Assure all students have the opportunity to improve their outcomes. Keep remembering that.
In a rapidly changing society and global marketplace.
21st century learning is.
Okay, any other? We'll come back with actual language for tomorrow, but keywords and themes, or if there are other sources that like, oh, we should really quote from or pull a finding from that you feel strongly about. We sort of need that surfaced or sent to, a couple of folks today, so we can be putting that into legislative language for tomorrow.
I think for the VSA, didn't Jeff Francis say some interesting things last year about sort of modernizing a system that's sort of been layered upon layer, for the last couple of 100 years? Like, I know modernization can be a scary word for some folks, but maybe we get as an idea to throw into the mix.
Jim Francis is the former Chelsea.
Yes, from my Vermont Superintendent Association.
Do we have collaboration in there?
And I think, it might be good to look back at some of what the secretary has said in testimony about the plan and their goals as well. I think the goals are highly aligned.
That's the phrase from Friday that's sticking in my head about future proofing our system. We have a high reliance on federal dollars, and the funding can be very. And that goes with stability and predictability, so.
Let's see.
I think only Casey hasn't played in, so we should put him on the spot.
You can just say ditto.
Ditto. I mean, everyone said a lot of good stuff.
Okay,
So we have.
all right, we did the
Oh.
path, we started with the easiest, most vague thing we possibly could.
But now we're ready.
Now,
We want to go back to the class size
ready
limit.
to go,
We want to talk about the hard stuff.
the hard stuff.
Wouldn't it be fun if we just made the statement of purpose like a big Wordle flag?
I don't know how the clerk's office would feel about that.
I really do wish you could present a bill with, a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, sometimes.
I got a little bit here. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, this started. Some of these things.
So if you can't read it.
Okay.
Welcome back, Beth.
Thank you.
I don't know
That's
if
St.
that's-
James Office of Legislative Counsel. What are we doing?
Good question, man.
Do we have the ability to see changes or the proposed language that came from VSA?
No, I haven't had an opportunity to make any of those changes, and I think there's still some outstanding questions, and I don't want to share anything I've received from them without their permission, so I don't know where that leaves us.
Remind me, is the commission part?
No, this is about class size.
I know, but if we have to set that aside, it's the commission.
You have on your website, you have the commission, the subcommittee, district boundary subcommittee, class size minimums, which, 16 VSA 828, which is which schools school districts can pay tuition to. And I have one more thing.
We didn't get to the commission this morning, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Right.
Why don't
Keep
we-
building momentum with the potentially easier stuff.
State Board of Education appointment language. That's the fourth. Okay, so we're looking at the
Seeing it
commission.
now.
Yes,
Okay,
which what draft
Which
is
one is
that?
that?
That is,
4.1.
4.1.
Let me get on the Zoom.
oh, that's right, we have a fair bit to go through on this, since we were actually, this is where we're narrowing the focus of the commission.
So this was in draft language here was Peter and Chris and I looking at the existing commission and to the best of our understanding of sort of where things stand and the biggest work that needs to be done out in the world, taking a stab at what would it mean to reduce the focus of the commission and put it in real language in front of us. So this is maybe not every single word, but more or less, I think the three of us feel like this is.
And a lot of it is to sort of dovetail with the work of the subcommittee, district boundary subcommittee. Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't made any changes to, subsection A, although looking at it now, I think that there could be some changes potentially made here to conform with the rest of the changes you're making. But I didn't touch anything about the membership that we've been looking at, so you're adding those 5 non-voting members. And then I started making conforming changes. So I'm going to skip through here and go to the big changes. So, and then we'll go back up to see how those smaller changes reflect in here. So just to reorient you, the commission has a whole duties subsection with a whole host of things they're supposed to do. And the first piece is public engagement. I haven't made any changes to that. Then second piece are the policy considerations that the commission should be requiring. And there were larger, all of those large letters. So starting with A were topics. And so the first one is governance, resources, and administration. And that remains largely unchanged with the exception of removing effective integration of CTE. In the education vision of the state.
Say something?
Yep.
The suggestion to take that out was not because effective integration of CTE won't be extremely important to the future of the state, but because that work is happening elsewhere, i.e. here.
It will be having
And we
them
have
to
to-
give us an update.
We are gonna have to do that work.
And then the next topic, it was, and rather than do pages upon pages of yellow, I've just highlighted the piece here, and this is, I should say, unedited. The physical size and footprint of the education system, everything listed here, the recommendation that this draft is making is to remove it from the commission's charge. So, studying and making recommendations regarding how the unique geographical and socioeconomic needs of different communities should factor into the provision of education. And then that larger broad charge was further defined by specific analyses, and those are all struck here. And then moving on to page 8, the next topic was the role of public schools. So the commission was charged with studying and making recommendations regarding the role of public schools should play in both the provision of education and the social, emotional, and well-being of students. And then again, specific analyses are things to consider, and that's all being struck. The second to last larger topic is the education and finance system, all struck. All of the work there struck. And then I did take out the additional considerations, the last piece there.
So again, this is just to recognize that a lot of this is happening here at a much quicker pace than the commission moves. And period.
So then if you think about everything that this draft is proposing to strike, and we go back and we look at some of the language related to the, so for example, the steering commission is,
What page are you back up to?
I am on page 3. Right after the appointments. The steering group is charged with providing leadership to the commission. And there is language in here that allows the steering group to form a subcommittee of the commission to address education finance topics in greater depth. And because you've removed the education finance topic from topics for the commission to consider, I've made a conforming amendment here to remove the authority to have the education finance subcommittee.
They're still welcome to form an education finance subcommittee if they want.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
removing the shall.
Yeah.
It keeps the option for the steering group to form as many subcommittees as it wants of its membership. The finance subcommittee was unique in that the steering group was allowed to appoint, I'm on line 23 on the bottom of page 3, going on to page 4, non-commission members to the education finance subcommittee. So that language is all removed. And it would just read, the steering group may form one or more subcommittees of the commission to address key topics in greater depth as necessary. And then a similar conforming change here is duties of the commission. This is what all of those other topics fall under. So the commission still exists and it still has duties. Starting on line 4 here on page 5. The result of the commission's work currently is a recommendation for a statewide vision for the public education system. And then based on all of the strike throughs below this, I've modified that to read, the result of the commission's work shall be recommendations for the state level education governance system, including the roles and responsibilities of the Agency of Education and the State Board of Education. Period. And then in creating and making its recommendations, the commission shall engage in the following: the public engagement piece, and then the governance piece, which is all about the State Board of Education and the Agency of Education. So you could modify this however you see fit, but it didn't seem to me to be still within the commission's purview to make a recommendation for a statewide vision for the public education system based on all of the strike throughs below this language. It's really a policy decision for you all.
Okay, so
keep going?
what's that?
Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay.
Then I'll ask my
This is all the language that we just walked through as being struck. Now we're in the deliverables. I'm on page 10, line 3, reports and proposed legislation. Oops, and I should actually, you'll see why in a second, but that should actually just be reports now. The commission shall prepare and submit to the General Assembly. I've left in everything that they've already done. I don't really see any need to repeal that. But modified their duties. So a written report containing final findings and recommendations. Current requirement is for the statewide vision, but again, based on the changes that we've just walked through above this language, I've modified that to read based on its analysis of the state level governance topics contained in, and then refer to the subdivision about the State Board of Education, the Agency of Education, and then removed the requirement for proposed legislative language. I didn't change anything regarding the assistance or the number of meetings that the state board can have. And then we jump right into the school district boundary subcommittee. And I don't think I made any changes between what we looked at yesterday and today.
Okay. So I think part of the goal here was to have the commission really talk about districts, not necessarily, not the subcommittee, but the commission itself to talk about sort of district governance, district qualities, that sort of thing. And does that fall within the language that we have?
No.
Okay. So right now, the sole sort of responsibility of topics for the commission is solely the state level
Correct.
governance?
Correct. Yes.
All right, I think part of what we wanted to do, in my mind, go ahead.
What I think you're saying, I thought was essentially the work we're assigning to ourselves for next year.
Yes, but to have them engage in a robust public engagement process.
But if we're still in the in-between of not knowing exactly what the new districts are, like they're trying to help us move the ball in a thoughtful way, using the information in this field, like how many kids are in the real schools, what condition they're in, where could you easily make change, more easily make changes to move towards fewer districts. And then we have to come back and say which one we can live with.
Yeah.
And then figure out the minutia of how those are going to operate. Like, I feel like you're asking them to figure that out before they know what they are.
I'm not. I'm asking them to engage with Vermonters through their public engagement process about sort of the qualities of larger districts. I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, but the idea was, in my mind, to allow the work of the commissions, especially since they're engaging in this significant public engagement with all of the sort of groups of Vermonters that we have here listed in here, to engage with Vermonters about our educational delivery system as a way to help us and potentially the boundary drawing group for just sort of characteristics of what makes a good district. I'm not quite sure how to phrase all of this. But I saw those two sort of working in parallel as the sort of public engagement goal of the commission. But that's what I'm.
Feels too fluffy for me, and I'm a humanities teacher.
It sounds like you'd like them to publicly engage to get folks on board with there being a change in the structure.
I don't know if I'd call it
different
get folks on board. I would say get Vermonters, engage with Vermonters about the transformation concepts. I'd say the public, that the consultants hired, would not at the job of sort of trying to sell anything to everybody.
I'll just say public engagement means we're putting out what we're engaged in, what we're trying to do and asking for feedback. And I think that's really important. And I think if we can figure out how we define this, it could really help the work of that district boundary subcommittee. And I think that if we're going to ask them to engage in a public process, it has to be in alignment with the work of that subcommittee. Feels like to me. My thoughts on it. Want promoters to weigh in.
But what are they weighing in on?
Well, let's read. what-
Restructure of districts or not?
Our goals for transparency.
Go right ahead.
We have.
So again, this is all policy. But this language, the public
I knew
engagement
we had language
language,
in here somewhere.
Yeah, we do.
is for the subcommittee.
Yes.
So the district boundary subcommittee shall engage and coordinate with the commission's public engagement subcommittee and the public engagement consultant to maximize public input and feedback regarding the development of the proposed new school district boundaries. I think we've talked about, or I've cautioned you about, and we also have language in here that says the subcommittee is the sole owner of their work product.
Right.
And then if the commission wants you all to know how they feel about what the subcommittee is recommending, they can do that on their own. But if you have the subcommittee engaging in a public process for their goals, and then the commission engaging in the same public process or using the same subcommittee and consultant for their own goals, you could have two competing agendas here,
Yeah.
which is a policy choice.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight that. You could beef this language up, right? We could add some coordination language. You could also require an addendum to, like we do for rules, an addendum to the subcommittee's report for you all of summarizing all of the public engagement, the comments they've received, all of that. That often happens in rulemaking, especially at the federal level. So if your concern is getting that feedback to you all about the change, we can put some requirements in there about the deliverables and how they have to include summaries or comments of or links to the public engagement process, the information they've gleaned. But this language about public engagement is specific to the subcommittee, not the commission as a whole.
But potentially to the same effect. I knew there was language in here that makes me feel much better. Yeah. But
So my question isn't for you, it's actually for the future Public Education Commission, which you're a member of. What is the process that the commission on the future of public education engaging in? Have they already set their parameters? Do they already have their goals for that? So
they have contracted with a group who's highly skilled in doing this kind of public engagement. That group is sort of working to kind of hone the task. I think this provides both the commission and that group to be able to hone the task a little more clearly. And then what the consultants have is really sort of like an engagement process. It's more about how you engage with the various groups of Vermonters who may not be the types who come to every forum that we hold. And this, I think, makes clear that that should include public input and feedback regarding the development of proposed new school district boundaries. Okay, yeah. So I've wasted a lot of time talking when the language is right there to be talked about.
Would you like to look at any other pieces of language? I don't want to keep scrolling and making people dizzy.
Right.
Or myself.
I think we may be putting them,
So do we need to give a charge to the commission as a whole?
that's still in here.
It's in here.
Okay, avert your eyes.
Just say what page.
We just slimmed it down.
We're going back up to page 1.
Got it.
So you've got the creation. I didn't think to change this in the moment last evening, but this is worth, and I will certainly do that, but certainly worth reading through and making sure that it matches the changes that you've made. On page 1, subsection A, but if we go down to page 5, the duties of the commission. The first sentence I'm leaving unchanged. And then focusing the further duties of the commission on that state level education governance system. But again, this is all policy. We can wordsmith this.
Okay, everybody, further comments? You okay here? Right. I'll take the win.
Pick the win.
That there are no further comments.
Can we,
Yeah,
if you actually scroll up to page 4. I don't know if this is necessary at this point, but I wonder, since we're reopening the sort of commission discussion, page 4, line 4. Could we change the shall to a may? Because we put a really long list in here, and this could consume. Knowing this was a challenge in our group, in the school construction group this summer, like. If you have to consult with lots and lots of groups, that's all you'll ever be able to do. I'm not trying to dissuade public engagement, it's just if that was a failure, I will take it as co-chair of that of ours this summer to engage with the like 19 groups that were supposed to be part of our process in the 6 meetings we had. So I'm looking at this list through that lens and going, wow, I don't know if any of these have happened, and this could consume the rest of the commission meetings.
so here's what I will say is, since we've slimmed down the
And
sort
some
of
of these,
charge of the
right.
commission, I'm not sure that they need to speak with the public school
Yeah,
employee.
I
benefits. What I will say, for those who might be concerned by changing a shall to a may, the public engagement consultant we have, I think is highly ready and skilled to get at the populations of Vermont that we want to make sure get their voices heard, regarding both sort of the big state level stuff, but also the sort of coordination with the boundary subcommittee. So I'm just saying that they may not engage with the Department of Labor, but they will very much engage with people in rural areas, et cetera. I'm very confident in our ability to sort of meet this particular goal of diverse input.
I'm happy to change it. Do you want me to change that to a may?
Yes.
And then while we are thinking of it, on page 11. Right now. There's per diem and reimbursement expenses from not more than 30 meetings. I don't think there's any other meeting. Anyway, just a consideration, and that includes subcommittee meetings. I know a lot of the folks on that subcommittee were not drawing those per diems, but your subcommittee may if they are retired folks. And I don't know how many meetings there have been held total thus far, if this number needs to be updated.
Yeah, we should know that.
The budget update you got would include what's available yet from all of this, right?
That's right.
Which seemed like, wasn't it like 50,000?
Yes, yeah, I don't think it's a question of money, it's a question, do we change the
Number.
number 30?
Yeah, it's the number of meetings.
This language.
We could say something like, district boundary subcommittee, shall be limited to no more than 20 meetings.
I think we
Outside
don't
of
like,
that.
why,
If you just change the 30 to a higher number, does that fix?
I don't want to micromanage this out here, like.
I don't know how to rearrange.
what
They've
they
got
need to
They've got a very short window.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
okay.
so I don't think we need
The
to worry
money-
much.
The money's not a problem.
Yeah, I don't think the number.
The question is, do we just eliminate the 30? Or do we just sort of let it ride and assume that there's enough built in that it can happen? Compensation, better we should.
Can we
Not
assume?
more
We must
than
know.
30 meetings. No one's really taking the per diem, so there's probably.
Oh.
Okay, I say we just leave it. Everybody okay with leaving it? Aaron? Yeah, Aaron, no changes.
That's it, yeah.
Where are we going next?
All right, that's
We have
it.
this that entire piece
Well, we've been through.
with the, I want it for into the larger draft. Including composition, everything, like who we're.
Okay, next. Can we
Size.
go there?
I think.
Tell me we're open.
Via text, Chelsea says okay, but she's not stating it here right now.
So it's okay to what?
Just go back to the class size suggestions
That she's.
that they provided, but I'm not sure exactly what the status of those is, so, yeah.
Shall we just take a quick 10 minutes? Or can we?
I guess,
roll?
see if we can reach her.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.